So, folks, we got to talk about the fact that the situation in the Middle East right now has gotten nuclear, and not in the way that a lot of folks might think. Because when people have been talking about nuclear attacks, they've been talking about how Iran has, weapons grade uranium buried underneath rubble after the United States struck their different sites, all of that stuff. Well, in this case, there has been a drone attack against a nuclear power plant in the United Arab Emirates. And basically, this seems to have been an event that has really precipitated a desire for a large scale response. So we're kind of in a dangerous moment here for where the ceasefire is, where all of this is. Because, of course, as we're talking about a ceasefire between the United States and Iran, you also have Israel doing its own thing. And despite the fact that there was a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, Israel has continued to bomb Lebanon. Hezbollah in Lebanon has continued to retaliate for those bombings. It's been a really big shit show, to say the least. Basically, we're going to talk about this real quick. Drone strikes UAE nuclear plant as US and Iran signal they are prepared to go to resume war. A drone strike sparked a fire on the edge of the United Arab Emirates' Seoul nuclear power plant on Sunday in what authorities called an unprovoked terrorist attack. No one was blamed, but it heightened the risk of renewed war as the United States and Iran signaled they were ready to fight again. Basically, the fire is under control. There's appears to be no risk of any kind of nuclear contamination, radiation, etc. But it does highlight the fact that Iran, or presumably an Iranian ally, could, if they so desired, strike that facility. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that this was intended to prove capability, right? It was not intended to destroy the site because, as Iran has demonstrated time and again, it has the capacity to fully carry out attacks in the region against its proposed targets. And part of this, I think, is, again, a bid to establish control here. There is also the possibility of like an Israeli false flag attack, though, again, no evidence of that has emerged thus far. All of that being said, this did seem poised. This happened about 2 days ago. This did seem poised for the United States to resume bombing Iran. And, like Donald Trump essentially fantasized about bombing Iran publicly on Truth Social for days. He's been talking about how wonderful it would be to continue attacking them, how there would be nothing left after a U.S. attack, etc. Again, threatening annihilation of Iran, in other words, but without using the exact words he used when everyone realized, oh, hey, he's actually serious about potentially using nuclear weapons against Iran. I mean, he was posting stuff like this just yesterday morning. If Iran surrenders, admits their navy is gone and resting at the bottom of the sea, and their air force is no longer with us, and if their entire military walks out of Tehran, weapons dropped and hands held high, each shouting, I surrender, while wildly waving the representative white flag, and if their entire remaining leadership signs all necessary documents of surrender and admit their defeat to the great power and force of the magnificent USA, the failing New York Times, the China Street Journal, Wall Street Journal.
You'd think at some point people would stop voting in politicians this asterisk for yet another Middle East forever war.
I mean, you would think that, like, even Republicans would be getting sick and tired of this shit, you know? Corrupt and now irrelevant CNN and all other members of the fake news media will headline that Iran had a masterful and brilliant victory over the United States of America. It wasn't even close. The Democrats and media have totally lost their way. They've gone absolutely crazy. President DJT, right? So he's like fantasizing about this war going so much better than it's actually going. And then later that same day, about 5 hours later, I've been asked by the Emir of Qatar, Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, the President of the United Arab Emirates, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, to hold off our planned military attack on the Islamic Republic of Iran, which was scheduled for tomorrow, that serious negotiations are now taking place, that, in their opinion, as great leaders and allies, a deal will be made which will be very acceptable to the United States of America, as well as all countries in the Middle East and beyond. The deal will include, importantly, no nuclear weapons for Iran. Based on my respect for the above-mentioned leaders, I've instructed Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Daniel Kane, and the United States military that we will not be doing the scheduled attack of Iran tomorrow, but have further instructed them to be prepared to go further with a full, large-scale assault on Iran on a moment's notice in the event that an acceptable deal is not reached. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Right? So, essentially, what does seem to have emerged here, according to both Donald Trump and various news outlets here, is that Donald Trump is in fact calling off this strike because various leaders in the Middle East who are undertaking their own independent negotiations with Iran begged him not to. Right? Because Donald Trump's own negotiating teams have been so laughably incompetent, so divorced from the actual conversation that's happening within the region, that Donald Trump is effectively just being like, yeah, you guys go take care of it.
When you get on your knees and prostrate yourself before him. Republican voters want him to come again.
It's okay to like to feel being used on a carnal level.
Yeah. Haven't you ever wanted to be used on a carnal level?
You want to feel like that man can't control himself because of this carnal, just unbridled attraction to you, that he can't keep his hands off of you.
It's true. That handsy Jesus that Steven Crowder's always talking about. Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. And Darkane, thank you for the $5 dono. But yes, effectively here, we have a situation where Donald Trump, I think, is just frustrated with the fact that he can't seem to communicate effectively with the Iranian leadership to get what he wants. And he doesn't really have any other strategy aside from kill more people. And so he seems to be letting, the various leaders of the region, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, do the negotiating for him, and then he's going to try and take credit for the negotiation and the deal that they have. That's kind of that's the impression that I get from watching all of this go down. Al Jazeera reporting a while ago, Trump says U.S. will be satisfied if Iran agrees to no nuclear weapon, right? Trump says the U.S. will likely be satisfied with a diplomatic resolution with Iran if Washington's Middle Eastern allies are content with the terms. If they're satisfied, we will probably be satisfied also, noting that his primary condition remains a total ban on Iran having a nuclear weapon. So, again, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE coming together to collectively negotiate with Iran on the United States' behalf because they actually understand what's happening way better than any of Donald Trump's stooges or his son-in-law, who are being sent to actually negotiate for the United States at this time. And as far as we know, there's been absolutely no progress made from U.S. negotiations with Iran directly. And so this is going to serve as a kind of proxy where Donald Trump doesn't really care about what comes out of this other than some kind of signal flare he can hold up as see, my Republican allies, they won't have a nuclear weapon. And any other shortcomings he can then blame on ineffectual Saudi, Qatari, UAE, Emirati, negotiators, right? There's plausible deniability for him now to blame them for any shortcomings in the deal. Yeah, maybe Trump shouldn't have torn up the JCPOA. Exactly. It was a very good deal. It took years to negotiate. And the Iranians are showing up to these negotiations with like people who have doctorates in their given fields, who have studied the United States for like their entire lives. And then like Jared Kushner rolls up. This fucking trust fund baby who's looking for bribes, and like they just cannot communicate with each other. They can't do it because Jared Kushner is fundamentally looking for things that don't make any sense to have in this negotiation. And he doesn't know enough to understand when he's being offered exactly the kinds of things he wants, but in the way that is acceptable to the Iranians.
What I don't get is how no sketch comedy show has done a parody of the Jared Jewelers commercials. How'd he botch that MEP steal? He went to Jared.
That does seem like some low-hanging fruit that SNL would have already, like, eaten all of, you know? Just tell him it's Jared. So, we have all of that going on, and worth noting, earlier, Donald Trump said he's not offering any concessions to Iran, right? But he did say on Friday he was open to a 20-year pause on Iran's nuclear program. But then today he said he's not open to anything. Like, Donald Trump doesn't know what he wants. But I have a feeling that if these negotiators in the Middle East are able to get some kind of deal off the ground, he's just going to rubber stamp it because he wants to be done with Iran and move to something that makes him look better because he's aware that it's very unpopular. So that's kind of where we're at, but it's also worth noting that between all of this, like the threatened attack tomorrow on Iran, the attack on the nuclear plant in the UAE, tensions have been going up and up and up. And earlier today, Pakistan deployed a jet squadron and troop reinforcements to Saudi Arabia. So, like, well, Pakistan has been, kind of towing the line here. They are also shoring up their relationships across the Middle East. And this is actually like an act of escalation rather than de-escalation. Like all of this has the potential to pop off in a much, much larger way. And so the sooner some kind of peace agreement can be inked, the better. Because there are a lot of powers moving around in the region right now, and that could lead to some substantial clashes if things really start popping off. As all of this is taking place, in the background, we have things that I think are going to be quite important, such as China has joined in on selling US treasuries. I talked a lot about this at the beginning of the war, and it continues to be a really big deal. But Japan has been selling off their US treasuries. And China is now beginning to sell off their US Treasury bonds. And this bond market is really, really, really important because it stabilizes the US economy and the US dollar, right? It is, again, part of the reason the United States has the level of stability it does economically. And so typically the reason people buy US Treasury bonds is because they have very low yields. Like they don't really pay back that much money, but they are a sure thing, or have historically been considered a sure thing. Yeah, it represents trust in the value of the US dollar. Effectively, it's giving a loan to the US government, but that's then backed by practically a guarantee that like you're not going to lose money on it, and it's going to pay you back a very small but sure amount. Folks, when China, one of the largest bond holders in the world, starts selling US Treasury bonds, that's a really bad sign. And this can be used as part of diplomatic maneuvering as well. Like Japan, for example, signaled its deep disagreement with the Iran war by selling a bunch of their treasury bonds in the US currency, or in the US treasury bonds, rather. And so a lot of what's happening right now is that there is an acknowledgement that the US economy is destabilizing, that the actions of the US government are causing the global economy to come unhinged and unscrewed. And the people who hold these bonds are losing faith that the US government is going to be able to back those bonds. And that's really, really bad. Because basically, one of the greatest strengths in America and to the American economy is the US dollar and the value of it and the endurance of it. And as that decreases, so too does US influence, right? It's another way that the soft power of the United States is being eroded and destroyed by the Trump administration. So, it remains to be seen exactly how much this is going to cause an international panic. However, it is noteworthy that this does not appear to be a move by major Chinese firms, but rather, or the Chinese government, but rather Chinese investors, right? And that is, that's interesting because instead of this being a diplomatic move, it's an economic one, right? It is instead a maneuver because investors are losing faith in the US government, effectively. We have all of that going on. Now, is there any hope that this madness is going to end anytime soon? Yes, sort of. Maybe. Because earlier today, I talked about how Donald Trump on Truth Social was railing against the War Powers Act. He retweeted a Mark Levin screed from over on X. Well, why was he retruthing a screed about war powers resolutions? Well, it has a chance to do with this. All right.
I think the good parts are the Trump economy and the bad parts are the Biden economy because he's done a terrible job. He did a terrible job.
With inflation
Anything good is me. Anything bad is Biden. That's why they called him Bad Biden. We are currently on the verge of some kind of breakthrough when it comes to a war powers resolution. So that's some good news here, right? Up till now, House and Senate Republicans have defeated multiple war powers votes brought by their Democratic colleagues since the start of the U.S. campaign in Iran on February 28th. But some in the GOP who were initially hesitant to rein in Trump have soured on his administration's lack of a clear plan for the conflict and skyrocketing fuel costs for their constituents, a byproduct of Tehran's closure of the Strait of Hormuz. All right. In the House on Thursday, GOP lawmakers narrowly voted down a resolution that would have directed Trump to remove U.S. armed forces from hostilities against Iran. A tie vote of 212 to 212 meant the measure failed under chamber rules. 3 Republicans, Thomas Massie, Brian Fitzpatrick, Tom Barrett, crossed the aisle to support the measure. 1 Democrat, Jared Golden, opposed it. But Golden, a former Marine who served in both Iraq and Afghanistan, has indicated he'll support the next war powers resolution. He said he only opposed the last measure because it had a withdrawal deadline that had already passed. Also, Representative Frederica Wilson could return to Congress after being absent for 4 weeks and not voting on any issue since April 17th. Wilson released a statement Thursday that she recently underwent eye surgery and was unable to fly but had plans to be back in Washington, D.C. soon. Additionally, Tom Keene Jr. has also been absent since March 5th because of a personal medical issue. Republicans can't have more than 2 defections on an otherwise party line vote. So, in the Senate, meanwhile, a motion to discharge a war powers resolution from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee failed by a vote of 49 to 50 on Wednesday. And so basically, the big hope right now is that there could be some kind of war powers resolution in the House. That would mark the major breakthrough, and that's kind of where we're at. More pressure needs to be lodged against Senate Republicans. So if you live in a red state or have a red senator, do call them and make it known that you are real American and you are deeply upset about this Iran war. All right, because there's there is a decent chance that we could get 1 or 2 defections in the Senate. Watch Mike Johnson suddenly send everyone home again. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. So, all of this being said, there is a chance that a war powers resolution could actually happen. That we could actually bring our troops home. That all of this could come to an end. We just need Congress to act. That's literally all we need them to do. We need them to do one fucking thing, and it's to end this stupid war that is making life harder for everybody in America. Are we still living in a constitutional democracy if the president doesn't follow the law? Excellent question. Now, of course, none of this stops Israel from doing what it's doing. And it is worth noting that they are doing some heinous shit. For example, as all of this conflict is happening, of course, Israel's military is backing up settler, attacks on Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza. Notably, earlier today, Al Jazeera reports that Israeli settlers burned lands in the town of Al Carmel, south of Hebron, under the protection of Israeli forces. Because apparently one of the things that settlers have been doing is just setting fire to farms, to land, to grass, to homes, and then just letting the fire burn everybody out in order to, ethnically cleanse the land of Palestinians. And it's one of their ways of trying to get Palestinians to leave. And they're, of course, backed by the IDF, which protects them from any kind of attempted defense of Palestinian lands. Additionally, we have reports from the Lebanese Health Ministry that the death toll in Lebanon has now reached over 3,000 people, with an additional 9,273 wounded. Again, in a war of aggression against Lebanon, where Israel has now seized a massive swath of territory in southern Lebanon and is continuing to hold it. And last but not least, Iraq has, throughout this entire conflict, been somewhat involved in the trade of hostilities. And apparently, there have been reports of secret Israeli bases in remote regions of Iraq, which have now prompted the Iraqi military to mobilize and begin sweeps of the desert in order to try and see if they can find some of these hidden Israeli bases. So the Iraqi military is seemingly very fully mobilized now at this point. So you start to see that there is this wider picture coming into view where, like, Pakistan is on the field, Iraq is on the field, Lebanon is on the field. Then you've got that complicated by Hezbollah. You've got, furthermore, the IDF operating within the West Bank and within Gaza. You've got a lot of different moving pieces here. And then you've got the United States, you've got Iran, and the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Like, there's a lot of different places, and this entire region is a powder keg that could get exponentially worse should Donald Trump take some kind of insane action. And I would love to say that that couldn't possibly happen. As I've shown time and time again, Donald Trump's mind is going. He's sundowning harder and harder every day. His bedtime keeps getting earlier and earlier because his brain is going. His energy is going. Like, he's way worse than Biden ever was, and that's saying something. So, all of that being said, there is light at the end of this tunnel. However, it is a fraught tunnel, and there are still several major hurdles to overcome. So, hopefully, either the coalition of negotiators, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar can bring Iran to the table and find like an actual agreement, and or hopefully US Congress can get its shit together and actually vote to put an end to this senseless violence. I know that Israel has also been seizing territory from Syria and Palestine, of course, yes. But all that being said, folks, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. Comments longer than 8 words really helping the algorithm. And also get organized. If we get more organized, we can put more pressure on our elected officials. We can even get better elected officials into office. Join your local Dems, join your local DSA, make your Dems more effective and progressive, make your DSA more effective and joined up with labor. Get involved, go to your meetings. If you need help getting started, we can help you out. Join our Discord, reach out to GamerG for help with DSA, reach out to Dragonfly for help with your local Dems. And also, if you don't want to do Discord, you can go over to riverboat.gg. You can usually find one or both of them over there. So go do that. And
Jack, let's drop the politics and get down to business in the Irish Catholic seas and mountains. Mountain emoji.
Nah, I gotta talk about politics till I die. I'm sorry, friend. I'm sorry. Can't do it. It's a burden I carry until I'm 6 feet under. And all that being said, folks, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes, also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. It is gender euphoric lingerie. It is sexy, it is comfortable, and it's non-tuck. So go check it out, ImogeneOlivia.com. Link down in the doobly-doo. And let's keep going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, dating, plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.